Every Morning at Playgroup by Michaela Montine, illustrated by Tom Cook. Every morning, Emily's mother went to work, Emily's father went to work, and Emily's brother Teddy went to first grade. And every morning, Emily went to Sesame Street Playgroup. On the first day of playgroup, Emily's mother and father introduced her to the teacher, Mrs. Brown. Mrs. Brown showed Emily her own cubby for her jacket. She showed her the shelves filled with picture books and crayons and blocks and balls and trucks. "This looks like fun," said Emily's mother. Emily thought so too. Then the teacher introduced Emily to Betty Lou and Grover and Max and Big Bird. "I hope I can remember everybody's name," Emily thought. When it was time for the grown-ups to leave, Emily's mother said, "I will be back this afternoon to take you home." Suddenly, Emily felt sad. The afternoon was a long way off. Her mother gave her an extra big hug. "If you look out the window when Daddy and I go, we can wave to each other," she told Emily. So Emily ran to the window and waved it goodbye. Big Bird waved it to his Granny Bird too. Mrs. Brown handed Emily a tray of red and blue and yellow and purple blocks. She gave Big Bird some paper and a box of crayons. Big Bird and Emily sat on the floor next to each other. Big Bird drew a picture of his nest, and Emily built a tall block tower. Max watched it. "I like to make a tower too," he said, and he picked it up 2 blocks from the tray. "But Mrs. Brown gave them to me," Emily said. They're everyone's blocks," Max said as he bumped at Emily's tower. It toppled to the ground. "He knocked it over my tower," Emily cried. Mrs. Brown brought over another tray of blocks. "There are enough blocks to share," she said. "Why don't you build a city of towers together?" Soon there were block towers and houses and even a bridge. The other children in the playgroup came over to see the city Max and Emily had built. Then Mrs. Brown took the children outside to the playground. There was a jungle gym, a seesaw, a sandbox, and 2 swings. Everyone ran to the swings. You'll have to take turns swinging," Mrs. Brown called from the steps. Betty Lou and Max were the first to swing. When it was Emily's turn, Big Bird pushed her so that she could swing higher. After lunch and a quiet time for rest, Mrs. Brown handed each child a musical instrument and sat down at the piano. "Now let's play and sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star together," she said. At first, and it just sounded like noise, but the second time they played the song, they listened to each other, and it sounded like music. It's story time, said Mrs. Brown. Today it is Grover's turn to pick a book. Tomorrow you may pick one, Emily. Grover chose a story about baby animals. Mrs. Brown read it to the group and showed it the pictures. Then she said, soon it will be time to go home. Tomorrow please bring a toy or a book or anything special you'd like to show to the playgroup. Emily knew just what she wanted to bring. Soon the parents started to arrive to pick up their children. Emily's mother came to take Emily home. Goodbye, said Big Bird. I'll see you tomorrow. Max and Grover and Betty Lou waved goodbye too. That night at home, everyone in Emily's family talked about the day at work or at school or at the playgroup. Emily had many new things to talk about. She told about building the block city with Max and swinging in the playground with Big Bird. She told about playing the simples at music time and that it would be her turn to choose a book at story time. When Daddy tucked Emily in bed, she asked, am I going to playgroup again tomorrow? Yes, said Daddy. You go to playgroup every morning. The next morning at breakfast, Emily asked, could we all stay home together today? No, Emily, said her mother. On the weekend, we'll all do something together. But today we're going to work and school and playgroup. Isn't it your turn to choose the storybook today? Asked her daddy. Don't you want to build block towers again with Max? Asked Teddy. Yes, said Emily slowly, and I have something special to take to playgroup. She ran to her room to get it. Emily held her bunny with the floppy ears very tightly all the way to playgroup. You'll meet my friend Big Bird, she said to Bunny. And you'll meet Grover and Betty Lou and Max and our teacher, Mrs. Brown. Don't worry, I'll help you remember their names. I think you're really going to like playgroup, she whispered to Bunny. The end.